What's up, everybody? Haunted Beard here. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm continuing making my way through the Child's Play franchise. I'm here to talk to you about Curse of Chucky. Came out in 2013, and this was Don Mancini's follow-up to the pretty brutal Seed of Chucky. This was a first-time watch for me, and for Curse of Chucky, they took it out of theaters. This was a direct-to-video release. Definitely tell they lowered the budget a little bit, but I was curious to see what Mancini was able to do following up Seed of Chucky, so here are my thoughts. First off, about 98% of Curse of Chucky takes place in one location. It's in one house, and right off the bat, we're introduced to our new main character, Nica, who is played by Fiona Dourif, who happens to be the daughter of Brad Dourif, and I think she is probably the best thing about this movie. And not only is she, I think, the best thing about this movie, she is probably the best person character that we have gotten so far in this entire franchise. And I think Fiona Dourif does a really solid job. I like her character, and obviously one of the big things here is that she is paralyzed. She's in a wheelchair. She's got health complications and things like that, but she doesn't view herself as a victim. She's tough, she's strong, she's independent, and she proves to be a pretty formidable challenge for Chucky. And I just think her performance is good. She does a really solid job, I think, with the character. She's a person who's easy to get behind, easy to root for. And being that Cult of Chucky, the follow-up to this, will actually also be a first-time watch for me, I'm really excited and glad to know that I'm going to get some more of her character in the next film. So as I said, the film starts off introducing us to our new lead character, Nika. And she lives at home with her mother, who is... It's made very clearly right away, she is this overprotective, overbearing mother who has some challenges of her own. And the film kicks off things with, I'd say, a pretty decent little surprise in that her mother is killed in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And it's made to look like she took her own life by jumping off the balcony, only we obviously know better that, of course, it is Chucky, as a Chucky doll shows up unannounced with no name or return address in this big old box that is delivered to their house right at the beginning of the film. So Curse of Chucky starts off with a bit of a surprise and unexpected moment there with the death of her mother, and then following this really sets up the rest of our entire film, gives us our whole new cast of characters as some of Nika's family members, namely her sister, sister's husband, their daughter, nanny, and a priest all show up to make sure that she's doing okay, get together, try to see how she's doing, help her out, and things like that. It's kind of a bit of a time of grief and mourning and things like that. And that is what really sets up our main plot. And as I said, pretty much the entirety of Curse of Chucky takes place at this one house, this one location. And we all know that Chucky is there lurking and hiding in the background, and he's going to start picking these people off one by one. And one of the main points I want to make about Curse of Chucky is that it is pretty similar to the original Child's Play film. And in some ways that's good, in some ways maybe not as much. Listen, if you watch my review, you know my thoughts and feelings about Seed of Chucky. Not a big fan, to say the least. So I'm glad that Don Mancini was able to kind of get things back on track, get just sort of back to the basics, a very sort of simple, basic, stripped down version of Chucky that was able to just kind of get rid of all the junk and just awfulness that was Seed of Chucky. So I appreciate him just kind of getting back to the basics here. However, in the same vein, this film does feel pretty similar to the original Child's Play film. And look, that's obviously not a terrible thing, but there are definitely moments and elements of this film that we feel like, yeah, we've kind of seen this before. And so it does feel very similar to that original film. And one of the things, too, has to do with, they sort of add the element of mystery there to, you know, all the characters here, they're not aware that Chucky is obviously alive. And so the film tries to sell that element of mystery of, you know, what in the world's going on. And they give us a new sort of, I'll just say, condensed version of like an Andy Barclay character, which is Nika's niece. And she obviously likes Chucky and is hanging out with Chucky, and he has revealed himself to her, right? And we get a scene in the movie where she says verbatim one of the things that Chucky told her to her mother, just like we see in the original film. And so there's that whole element there of, you know, we don't believe you. Obviously, the doll's not alive and things like that. Another one of the big things, too, has to do with how long the film takes to really give us some Chucky action. And it's really about halfway through the film, about the 45-minute mark, until we get real live Chucky, until Chucky utters his first words is halfway into this movie.
There is no God.
I can understand you kind of doing that with the first Child's Play film, which is kind of what they do. But here, we already know what's coming. Like, we already know that Chucky's alive. He's a killer doll. We just want to see them get to the action. And they really do take a long time to get there to where you really get some good Chucky moments. And they try to fill the film with some emotional, dramatic elements, namely some of the conflict between Nica and her sister basically sees Nika as a child and doesn't think she can take care of herself, and her sister wants to sell the house and all that stuff. And so there's kind of some family drama elements there. And we do get, I'll say, a pretty good and effective kill scene before Chucky is ultimately revealed, right? You get the scene where he pours the rat poison into the chili. And I do like how Mancini executes this scene. I think it's handled and directed pretty well. He definitely draws out the suspense here. It's almost a little overkill. There's a particular shot, though, that I really like, where it's this overhead shot, and you see from above the table and the 6 bowls of chili. And then the camera kind of starts rotating, and it gave me just this sort of picture of like a Russian roulette sort of vibe, like which one's the loaded chamber of chili, right? Which one's the poison one? I thought that was a really cool shot. I like that. Like I said, he really draws out the suspense here in terms of who's got the poison bowl. Turns out it's the priest. He ends up getting out of there, and then we get a scene where he gets into a car crash, and the police pull the wreckage back, and, you know, we get a decapitation and stuff like that. So it's a pretty good, pretty fun kill, but it's very reserved and pulled way back in terms of, you know, the Chucky action to it. There's not much Chucky to that kill. There is another good scene that takes place before we get the real Chucky reveal of Chucky and Nika on the elevator, and the power goes out, and I like, you kind of just see him in silhouette. But the main reason why I really like this scene is the music during this sequence is fantastic. It reminded me so much of the theme from Suspiria, and if you've seen that movie, you know what, the music in that movie is phenomenal. And I would bet huge money on it that Don Mancini definitely was inspired by that musical track from Suspiria, because the music here sounds so much like it, but it's pretty great. So listen, here's the thing about Chucky in Curse of Chucky. There is a bit of a doll redesign, which I am not as much of a fan of as I was with his look in Seed of Chucky, even despite really kind of hating that movie, but especially Bride of Chucky. I think his look in Bride of Chucky is the best. And they still go with sort of a scarred, stitched up look, but his face just looks a little different. And also, too, regarding Chucky, there's definitely a few moments here where you can tell he is CGI, specifically a scene where he's coming down the stairs, which I didn't love. There's another scene where I don't know for certain, but I'd be willing to bet he's actually played by like a child actor just dressed up like Chucky. And so there's a couple moments there that you're kind of like, this could have been done a little bit better. Once Chucky gets started, though, we do get some pretty solid kills. I like the kill of Jill when she gets electrocuted. It's a pretty solid one. The kill of Barb, too, up in the attic is pretty good. And they've really kind of shifted the atmosphere here to more of like a haunted house vibe. The power goes out during the house, and of course it's raining and storming and lightning outside. So it kind of, like I said, sort of gives you this sort of classy, atmospheric, haunted house kind of vibe. So that works pretty good. And so up to this point in the movie, I was just having a decent time. I wasn't loving it. I wasn't hating it. It was fine. There were aspects of it that I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Other aspects I was like, they could have done better. I was just kind of middle of the road. But then we get the last 20 minutes, and the last 20 minutes, I think, are a whole lot of fun and pretty top-notch. Ultimately, you get the showdown we've been hoping for since the beginning, Nika and Chucky, and it's just a whole lot of fun. And I love the shot too. There's another really good shot in this film where after Nika takes Chucky's head off and she thinks she's safe, and then you see Chucky in the background where his decapitated body stands up, and he grabs his head and he puts it back on his body. Reminded me of that scene at the very end of Halloween where Laurie Strode thinks she's safe, but of course she's not because Michael Myers is in the background and he sits right up. So nice little nod to Halloween there. I enjoyed. And then also a part of this sort of final sequence is we get to see Brad Dourif back. And one of the things that happens in the film is they're looking at these old family videos and they see somebody in the video that looks a little off and that looks a little strange. Turns out it's Charles Lee Ray. And we get this whole flashback sequence of Charles Lee Ray and Brad Dourif. And so just seeing Brad Dourif on screen in that role, I liked it. I think he's great. It's amazing what he's able to do just with the few minutes that he's on screen and with the character, right? Of the first 10 minutes of the first film and now another maybe 10 minutes here. But I just like it. I think he just does a really solid job and it's fun watching him on screen.
No, I told you. I've always had a thing for family.
Not only do we get to see Brad Dourif, we also get to see Jennifer Tilly. I had no idea she was going to be in this, and she just shows up, and it put a big old smile on my face. And so Tiffany is back, and she rescues Chucky once again out of police custody. We see that Nika is now been declared insane and is getting shipped off to a psychiatric hospital, which is, of course, going to set up the next film. And then we get our, I guess, mid-credit sequence where good old Alex Vincent, Andy Barclay comes back into the picture.
Play with this.
And so with everything that happens in the last, I think, 20 minutes of this movie, I think it really saves the overall experience. I love the showdown between Nika and Chucky. I love seeing Brad Dourif. I love that they brought back Jennifer Tilly. They're bringing back the original Andy Barclay, which is pretty sweet too. And so I think the last 20 minutes really kind of saves this thing from being just a pretty average, basic, middle-of-the-road type movie. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Curse of Chucky, I'm going to go 6 out of 10 for Curse of Chucky. So I am looking forward to Cult. Obviously, that's up next. Like I said, it'll be a first-time watch for me, so I have no idea what to expect. We'll see what happens, but that's all I got for you. Hit me up down below. Let me know your thoughts on Curse of Chucky. Would love to hear from you. And if you like videos like this, you know what to do because it's all horror and thriller movie content coming at you here on The Haunted Beard. And I'll see you next time for Cult of Chucky on The Haunted Beard.